All right, so this is how we would weave in or fill in around a shape. What I've done is I have established my shape or my design. So I started with a normal row of a color, and then I would only go in certain areas to create my shape. So I wove only the rows and areas I needed to weave. I didn't fill in this space, and I didn't fill in above or below because I wanted these bumps or points, or I don't know, they kind of look like an angry face right now, to be the only thing that would show up in my design. Now, the important thing with weaving a design into your pattern is that you need to connect it to the rest of it. So you're going to connect and stitch some of the rows together by gathering them up and sewing them in place. Now, I'm going to zoom this in so you can really see what I'm getting at. And what you'll see is that I have these separate little lines. Each of these separate lines connects to a row of weaving. Okay? And that's because I would go around and bring it full circle so it would connect to my initial design. So if I'm on this side and I'm ready to go into this part of my design, I've got this row here. I have no other string to attach to. So what I can do is I can find where that stitch is, and I'm going to go over and under it. So I've made it a loop that attaches and goes to the other side. One thing that you'll probably run into when you're weaving in a small area like this is you'll get little knots. Just take the time to untangle them so you don't wreck what you've already done. So now this is attached to this weft string. Actually, this is a warp string, right? This is our weft, this is our warp. Warp goes up and down, never moves. Weft can move in any direction and be any shape. Now, I've gone around this first string and I'm going to turn my weaving over again. And I'll zoom back out. Okay. And I'm going to continue my pattern on this side. So if I go under first, I need to go over the next time. And I continue that pattern all the way across like I would if I was weaving normally without adding a design. Sometimes I like to stop and pull it through before I get all the way to the end. Helps me with my tangles. If I go under, then I need to go over the next one and pull through. And I think the most time-consuming part of weaving is actually pulling your string, especially if you're using a lot of it. So I've gotten to this end. Now I'm going to turn my weaving back over. And I have an extra string here, and I have my weaving starting over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check this pattern. The last time I was on this string, I went under it, so then I need to go over it, and then I will go under the second string and pull it through so it attaches to this warp string and stitches the weaving together. Okay? And just like when we're weaving anything else, we need to keep that pattern. So if I went under, I'll go over and then under again. This is the hardest part, really, because you need to make sure that you keep that pattern so you don't just end up with loops. Then I turn this back over and I weave the old-fashioned way. No fancy bells and whistles, just under, over, or over, under, all the way across, keeping in mind that I will be flipping it to continue to attach to my pattern. So I pull all the way through. La 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 la. Pull and tuck and flip. So I've got my stitches again, yeah? Just this first one, I'm going to go over and around and under. And that's making a stitch to hold it in place. Then I turn it and repeat. So basically what we're doing is we're attaching string to the sides of our design. We won't worry about the middle right now, because I know you're saying there's a big gap in the middle, Miss Kanik. But you know what? We're going to take care of that later. Right now, we need to make sure that our sides are secure and they are not going anywhere. So I flip and I check my stitches. So if I went under, then I'll go over it this time and under to the stitches. Pull, under, over this one, and under the second time. When the sun came out, what a beautiful day. If you get to go outside, I would totally recommend it. It's a little chilly, but the sun is shining, and my chickens are out and about, running in the yard without permission, enjoying the sunshine. Alright, so I pull, 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 continue my pattern, making sure that it's always the opposite of the one underneath, and flip. Now I'm getting to a point where I'm starting to get to my last few stitches on this side, which is great, because then I can show you how to move on to the next row. Okay, and then back over, and over, under, over, under, over, under. So hopefully you guys are all being good and staying home, making good choices, keeping your hands clean, not going anywhere that you don't really need to be. I know that I really wanted to go to the grocery store and get extra ice cream, but I've tried not to because grocery stores are full of germs. So we went under this one and we'll go over. And again, we're in those last two stitches. I'm going to go between them. And then I'll go over this one and under the last. And really, you only need to keep these techniques in mind if you're going to do a more complex design. Some of you will be totally happy just doing rows of color, and that's fine. But this is for more of a challenge level. If you're getting bored with just going row after row of different colors, then you want to spice it up a little bit. I like to put designs into my weaving. I like to challenge myself to learn new techniques with my weaving so it's not so plain. Alright, so this is my last stitch on this row. I'm going to treat it normally, but then I'm going to continue, and I'm actually going to go to the next warp string. So I'm going to pull this through to go underneath. And yours might be over depending on how your weaving is. But I'm going to go to this next string and attach my weaving to that. So as you see, it naturally goes over and then under, and then we would go over again. And sometimes what you'll see is that your pattern is the same when you flip, and that's okay, as long as these strings, these weft pieces, these yarn pieces, have the opposite when you're weaving across the long row. So the edges are okay to be the same, but you don't want these to be the same in the middle, because then you just get a big loop of yarn and it ain't gonna hold nothing together. Alright, weave and tuck and turn. So, like I was saying, we've been skipping the thing over here because there was only the one, so we were stitching it directly. Now this one, we go over and under, and we're going to a new row because we're above this stitch, yeah? So we're actually going to go over, under, and then over into the next string. And pull through. And keep your other yarn out of the way, otherwise you get a big tangle and a mess, and nobody wants that. So pull tight, but not so tight that all the strings pull together. You just want to have a nice tight stitch. And if you lose your yarn on your needle, which will totally happen at the worst time, just tie another knot and check your stitch. So we can't have two that are going over, so we need one to go over and one to go under. And if we did that right, our pattern is going to stay the same as we need it to. When we flip it over, we can just keep going. So if any of you have any need of any yarn, or if you lost your needle, which I know you didn't because you're very responsible and you would never do that, please let me know. Just email me and I can get you the supplies that you need. Much easier that way than having you panic about not having what you need. I'd rather have you have the supplies that you need so you can do well. Alright, so we went over the first time. We're going to go under. And if I'm right next to my stitch, I like to pull through first. So under, and then we'll go over. And that will actually take us under to go around that string. And we're over again. So flip and weave. And really, I mean, this is what most of you are doing right now, is just weaving in the round, going around the front and the back of your loom without any fancy fancies, but this is for the fancy people that want to do fancy things. So, under, over, under, and I like to pull through so I don't have a big tangle, under, and then over, which actually will bring us around to grab that stitch and hold it in place. And that's where we're going to stop for now.